Have you ever felt like your thoughts control you, taking you from calm to anxiety in an instant? The Buddha taught that the mind can be our greatest ally or our worst enemy. In this video, we will explore the secrets to mastering your thoughts through ancient Buddhist wisdom. If you've ever wanted to find peace and mental clarity, this is the perfect place to start. If you're ready to take control of your thoughts and find lasting peace, you're in the right place. Stay with me as we dive into the timeless wisdom of the Buddha and uncover practical steps to master your mind. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on these transformative teachings. Let's begin this journey together. Chapter 1. The Nature of the Mind. Understanding the mind according to Buddhism. What is the mind? This is a question that great masters, philosophers, and truth-seekers have pondered for centuries. For the Buddha, the mind was the source of both suffering and liberation. In Buddhism, the term used to refer to the mind is citta, a word that encompasses not only the part of us that thinks and reasons, but also the part that feels, perceives, and responds to every experience we have. The mind is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic, ever-changing process. To master our thoughts, we must first understand how this process works. The ever-changing nature of the mind. Imagine the mind as a vast, open sky. Some days the sky is clear, the sun shines, and everything feels peaceful. These are the days when our mind feels aligned with the world. But there are other days when the sky is covered with dark clouds, storms, and lightning. These are the moments when the mind is filled with worries, negative thoughts, and fears. The beauty of this analogy is that, despite the changing weather, the sky remains the same. The clouds, no matter how dark or dense, do not change the essence of the sky. They only temporarily obscure it. Similarly, our negative emotions and thoughts do not change the fundamental nature of our mind. They only cover it for a time. When we learn to observe these thoughts like someone watching clouds pass by, we can rediscover the clarity that has always been there. The Buddha taught that the mind, or citta, is essentially a flow. It is never the same from one moment to the next. This flow is like a river, continuously moving, carrying leaves, branches, and all kinds of objects. Sometimes the river is smooth and flowing, but other times it is turbulent and agitated. Yet no matter how much the river changes, it remains the river. In the same way, the mind is constantly changing, but at its core, it remains a vast and deep space that can hold both calm and agitation. This perspective invites us to see our mental states differently. We are not permanently bound to a state of happiness or sadness, anxiety or tranquility. Everything is in constant flux. When we begin to observe the mind from this perspective, we realize that, like the sky, there is always a space of calm behind the storms of thoughts. Thoughts as waves. Now imagine standing by an infinite ocean. In front of you, the waves rise and crash on the shore, one after another. Some waves are small, almost imperceptible, while others are enormous, full of force, and drag everything in their path. Each of these waves is a thought, thoughts of joy, sadness, worry, or hope. Some are soft and comforting, like a summer breeze, while others are harsh and cold, like a storm at sea. What all these waves have in common is that, like thoughts, they are not permanent. No wave stays in the same place. They rise, reach their peak, and then return to the ocean from which they emerged. Our thoughts work the same way. Sometimes a thought of fear or anxiety can feel overwhelming, as if it will stay forever. But if we observe it closely, we see that eventually that thought also fades away, like a wave returning to its origin. This is something the Buddha taught clearly. Thoughts are transient. They change, transform, and do not have absolute power over us unless we give it to them. There is an ancient Buddhist saying, "The mind creates the world." This means that it is not so much what happens outside that determines how we feel, but how we interpret those experiences. If we cling to a negative thought, feed it and give it strength, that wave grows larger and more powerful. But if we learn to observe it, to let it flow without trying to change it, we realize that, in the end, every wave returns to the ocean. This brings us to a central concept in the Buddha's teachings, anicca or impermanence. In Buddhism, we are taught that everything, absolutely everything, is transient. This includes not only our external experiences, like material things and situations, but also our internal experiences, our thoughts, emotions, and moods. Impermanence is a fundamental fact of existence. The Buddha said that one of the greatest mistakes we make is believing that things will always stay the same. We think that a good situation will last forever, and when it ends, we suffer. Or we think that a bad moment will never end, and that fills us with despair. But when we truly understand impermanence, we stop clinging. We understand that everything that rises will eventually fall, and everything that hurts will eventually stop hurting. Imagine you are going through a difficult time. Maybe you've lost someone important, or you're facing an unexpected change. In those moments, the mind fills with thoughts of sadness, pain, and loss. But the Buddha invites us to see that, just as a storm never lasts forever, neither will those thoughts. Recognizing impermanence gives us the ability to be patient, to know that even if we are going through a dark night, the dawn will always come. Chapter 2. The Power of Mindfulness. Mindfulness as a tool to observe the mind. Now that we've understood how the mind is like an ever-moving ocean, it's time to dive deeper into one of the most powerful tools for learning to observe that ocean. Mindfulness or mindfulness. This ancient practice has transformative power, and its simplicity hides great depth. Mindfulness invites us to be present, to be aware of each moment without getting caught up in it. It's as if we're giving our mind a little space to breathe, a respite in the midst of the whirlwind of thoughts. Often when we think of mindfulness, we imagine someone sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, back straight, focused on their breath. While meditation is a fundamental part of the practice, mindfulness goes far beyond those moments of stillness. It's about learning to live each moment with awareness, from the way we feel the warm water while washing dishes to the experience of sipping coffee in the morning. Each of these moments can be an opportunity to practice mindfulness, to return to the reality of the here and now. But why is it so important to learn to observe the present moment, to master our mind? Because mindfulness teaches us to observe the mind without judgment. Imagine the mind as a vast sky, and each thought is like a cloud crossing that sky. Most of us, when we see a dark cloud, run toward it and try to push it out of the sky. We tell ourselves, I don't want to feel this. I must stop thinking like this. And without realizing it, we exhaust ourselves fighting against every cloud. Mindfulness invites us to change that approach. Here's this cloud. I'll observe it as it passes. And when we stop fighting our thoughts, we discover that they lose their power and dissolve into the air. This brings us to one of the most common practices within mindfulness, observing the breath. The breath is the anchor that connects us to the present moment. By observing it, we train our mind to stop running toward the future or returning to the past, and to stay in the only moment we truly have, this one. Imagine you're having a hectic day with 1,000 things to do, and suddenly your mind fills with thoughts of worry. I'm not going to finish on time. I have to do this and that. The breath can be like a refuge you return to when things get overwhelming. If you take a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the air enter and leave your lungs, that simple act can remind you that in this precise moment, you are okay. This pause is a breath in the midst of chaos, a moment when the mind can calm down, even if just for a brief second. And in that space of calm, we can remember that we are more than our thoughts, that thoughts come and go, but our essence is always there, observing. Over time, this practice allows us to develop an inner witness. It's as if by observing the breath, we also learn to observe our thoughts from a safe distance, like watching a movie. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is like a lighthouse in the darkness. It illuminates the corners of our mind, showing us what's there without us having to judge or change it immediately. Chapter 3. The Power of Detachment and Non-Identification with Thoughts, Detachment and Non-Identification. Now that we've explored mindfulness and how it helps us observe the mind, it's time to delve deeper into a crucial concept within the Buddha's teachings, detachment and non-identification with thoughts. This takes us a step further in the process of learning to master the mind, because it's not just about observing thoughts, but understanding that we are not those thoughts. It's a subtle difference, but one that can completely transform our relationship with the mind. We often identify with every thought that crosses our mind. When a negative thought arises, like, "I'm not good enough," or "I always fail," we take it as an absolute truth. We tell ourselves, "This is who I am," and in doing so we chain ourselves to that thought, allowing it to define how we feel and act. But the Buddha teaches that the mind is like a river, and our thoughts are like leaves floating in the current. We are not those leaves. We are the space through which they flow. The term anatta, or not self, is fundamental in this teaching. The Buddha told us that the self, the idea that there is a fixed, separate, and permanent self, is an illusion. But he didn't say this in a purely philosophical way. He said it as an invitation to observe our own experience directly. If you take a moment to look within, can you find a permanent self that has always been the same? If you look at your thoughts, you'll notice that they are constantly changing. The same is true of your emotions. Sometimes you feel happy, sometimes sad, sometimes at peace, sometimes angry. If you were those thoughts and emotions, then you would also change from moment to moment, like a leaf blown by the wind. The Buddha invites us to realize that we are not that constant flow of thoughts and emotions. We are more like the sky that watches the clouds pass by, but is not affected by them. The practice of detachment, then, is about learning to stop identifying with every thought that crosses our mind. This is a great relief because it allows us to stop carrying the stories we tell ourselves, stories that can be so limiting. Imagine you've been thinking for years that you're not capable of something, that there's always a thought telling you you're not enough. Every time it arises, you believe it, give it strength, and that determines what you do or don't do. But now imagine that you start observing that thought as if it were just a cloud crossing the sky. "Ah, there it is again," you say. And suddenly you realize that even though that thought is there, you don't have to act on it. It's just a thought, not a truth. And by letting go of your identification with it, you begin to discover a space of freedom. You are no longer a prisoner of your own ideas, but the observer of that mental process. This leads us to something very powerful. Detachment doesn't mean you stop having thoughts. It means you stop being controlled by them. It's about learning to see your thoughts without letting them define you. The Buddha explained this simply through a metaphor. If someone throws a burning ember at you, you can choose whether to hold it in your hands or let it fall to the ground. Negative thoughts, painful thoughts, are like that ember. If you hold onto them, they burn you. But if you learn to let them go, to release them, you discover that you don't need to burn yourself with them. Detachment also helps us face life's difficult moments with greater resilience. When something bad happens, the mind's natural tendency is to cling to the suffering, to go over it again and again, like scratching a wound that should already be healing. If someone offends us, for example, we spend hours, days, even years remembering that offense, reliving it in our mind. It's as if the mind were a machine replaying the same movie over and over, and every time we watch it, we feel the same the same anger. But when we practice detachment, we realize that we don't need to watch that movie again and again. We can let it go, change the channel, and choose another way to see life. This doesn't mean we ignore what hurts us. It means we learn not to cling to that pain, to recognize that it's part of the human experience, but that it doesn't define who we are. In this way, detachment becomes a form of self-care, a way to protect ourselves from ourselves. Now, this isn't easy. The mind has a natural tendency to cling to things, to create stories. But every time we practice detachment, it's as if we're telling our mind, "It's okay, I know you're there, but I don't need you to tell me how I should feel." And over time, that practice becomes a habit. Every time a negative thought arises, we recognize it, look at it, but don't let ourselves be carried away by it. It's as if we're training the mind to let go, to not cling, to be a little lighter. This brings us to talk about self-compassion, because detachment doesn't mean being harsh with our thoughts or emotions. It's not about telling ourselves, "You shouldn't think like that," or "Stop feeling that." On the contrary, detachment is based on the understanding that all thoughts, all emotions are part of the human experience. And by treating ourselves with compassion, by saying, It's normal to sometimes think like this, to sometimes feel this. We create a space of acceptance within ourselves. Compassion helps us stop fighting against the mind, and in doing so, the mind begins to relax, to stop fighting against itself. It's like when a small child is crying, and instead of saying, "Stop crying," we hug them and say, "It's okay, I'm here with you." The mind also needs that kind of hug, that understanding, and when it feels understood, when it doesn't have to fight against itself, it's easier for it to let things go. Detachment and compassion are two sides of the same coin. By learning not to cling to our thoughts, we also learn to be more compassionate with ourselves, to accept ourselves as we are. And that acceptance allows us to be more flexible, more open, more capable of adapting to life's changes. Remember, it's not about eliminating thoughts, but about learning to live with them in a way that doesn't harm us. The Buddha taught that by letting go of our identification with the mind, we find a place of peace that has always been there, a place of calm that doesn't depend on what's happening outside. And that is the true power of detachment, discovering that true freedom lies within us, in the way we choose to see and respond to our thoughts and emotions. Chapter 4. Strengthening the Mind with Daily Meditation. The Power of Daily Meditation. Now that we've explored the power of detachment and non-identification with thoughts, it's time to dive deeper into a practice that has been a central pillar of Buddhism for millennia: meditation. But not just any meditation, a daily consistent practice that acts as a gym for our mind, strengthening our ability to stay present and not be swept away by the current of thoughts. Daily meditation is like training, and each session, no matter how brief, becomes an opportunity to refine the mind, to polish the diamond we all carry within. But before we delve into the different techniques and benefits of daily meditation, let's talk about why this practice is so important and how it has transformed the lives of millions of people throughout history. Imagine the mind as a deep lake. When the mind is agitated, when we're constantly bombarded by thoughts and emotions, the surface of the lake becomes turbulent, and we can't see what's at the bottom. But as we practice meditation, it's as if the waters begin to calm. Little by little, the surface becomes more tranquil, and we start to see clearly what lies in the depths: our desires, our fears, our deepest aspirations. And the most surprising thing is that when we observe the mind with clarity, we discover that there's nothing to fear. We discover that the peace and calm we've always sought outside are actually waiting within us. One of the most basic forms of Buddhist meditation is samatha, or calm-abiding meditation. This practice aims to train the mind to focus on a single point, whether it's the breath, a sound, or even the flame of a candle. By doing this, the mind becomes focused and stops wandering so much. Imagine your mind is like a monkey jumping from branch to branch, unable to sit still. Samatha meditation is like teaching the monkey to sit, breathe, and observe in silence. At first, the monkey will resist. It will jump, fidget. But if you persist, if you do it day after day, you'll discover that the monkey begins to calm down, sits beside you, and simply observes the surroundings with you. This type of meditation isn't just an exercise in concentration, it's the starting point for something much deeper. When we manage to calm the mind, when the surface of the lake becomes so tranquil that we can see to the bottom, we're preparing the ground for the practice of vipassana meditation. This meditation, also known as insight meditation, invites us to observe the nature of things as they are, without the filters of our prejudices and conditioning. It's as if we're cleaning a mirror that has been dirty for a long time. At first, we only see stains and distortions, but as we practice, the mirror becomes clearer, and we begin to see ourselves and the world in a completely new way. In Buddhism, it's said that the mind is like a wild elephant, powerful, but untamed. However, if you manage to train that elephant, to domesticate it through daily meditation, that same force becomes an ally. The mind, when trained and calm, can help you achieve a clarity that once seemed impossible. It's like having a lamp in the darkness. Suddenly you can see the path much more clearly. As we delve deeper into the practice of meditation, we also begin to understand something very important: patience. Just as a tree doesn't grow overnight, the fruits of meditation aren't always immediate. At first, you might feel restless, as if the mind is more active than ever. This is normal. It's like when you start cleaning a house that's been closed for a long time. At first, dust flies everywhere and the house seems less livable. The same happens with the mind. Meditation is a process of cleaning, of removing layers of thoughts and worries until finally we begin to feel a clarity we hadn't experienced before. This brings us to one of the great benefits of daily meditation, the development of emotional stability. Imagine you're a sailor in the middle of a rough sea. Without the practice of meditation, every wave of emotion hits you hard, and you feel at the mercy of the waves. But meditation is like learning to build an anchor. Even if the sea is rough, even if there are storms, that anchor keeps you in place, allowing you to face the waves without being swept away. Over time, you discover that you don't need the sea to be calm to feel peace, because you found that peace within yourself, despite the waves. Now let's talk about something fundamental to maintaining a consistent meditation practice: discipline. Sometimes the mind tells us we don't have time, that we're too busy, that there are more important things to do. But discipline in meditation isn't an imposition, it's an act of love toward ourselves. Every time you decide to sit and meditate, even if it's just for 5 minutes, you're telling your mind and body that you deserve a moment of peace, that you deserve that space to reconnect with yourself. And that small act of love, repeated every day, can make a huge difference in your life. Think of someone who decides to start running. At first, maybe they can only run for a few minutes before feeling exhausted. But if they persist, day after day, their endurance improves, their body adapts, and one day they discover they can run long distances effortlessly. Meditation is very similar. At first, you might feel like 5 minutes are an eternity, that your mind is restless, that thoughts keep arising. But if you persist, if you allow yourself to be consistent, you'll discover that those 5 minutes become 10, then 15, and that the mind begins to enjoy that moment of stillness. This brings us to one of the most transformative aspects of daily meditation: the ability to see life with new eyes. When the mind is calm, when we've learned to observe our thoughts without being carried away by them, we begin to see things in a simpler, purer way. Imagine you've been wearing dirty glasses for a long time. You've gotten used to seeing the world through those smudges, thinking that's how reality is. But one day, you decide to clean those glasses, and suddenly, the world looks clearer, brighter, more colorful. Meditation is like cleaning the glasses of the mind. It's like removing the filters that prevent us from seeing reality as it is. And the most beautiful thing of all is that daily meditation connects us with something beyond ourselves. It connects us with the present moment, with the pure experience of being alive. There's a saying in Buddhism, there is no path to peace. Peace is the path. This means that peace isn't something we'll find in the future when we achieve this, or that. Peace is something we can experience right now in this very moment, through meditation. And by doing so, we discover that the present is the only place where life truly happens. Daily meditation allows us to find that inner peace, but it also teaches us to carry it with us everywhere. At first, maybe we only feel that calm when we're sitting in silence with our eyes closed. But over time, that calm begins to accompany us throughout the day, in our interactions with others, in difficult moments. It becomes a kind of silent friend whispering in our ear, "Remember to breathe, remember to be here now." And when life gets complicated, when things don't go as we expected, that inner voice helps us remember that we can always return to the breath, to stillness, to that inner refuge we've built with each meditation. Chapter 5. Practical Tips for Mastering. The mind in daily life, bringing mindfulness into everyday life. Now that we've explored the power of daily meditation and how it can transform our relationship with our thoughts, it's time to bring that wisdom into everyday life. The true test of a strong and serene mind isn't what we achieve while sitting in meditation, but how we handle the challenges of daily life, how we react to difficulties and maintain calm in the midst of the storm. Here are some practical tips to help you cultivate a calm and clear mind, even in the most challenging situations. Conscious breathing as a refuge in the midst of chaos. Imagine your mind is like a boat sailing on the high seas. Sometimes the sea is calm and the boat moves smoothly, but other times the waves are so big that it feels like the boat could capsize. Conscious breathing is like an anchor you can drop at any moment to stabilize your boat. When you find yourself in a stressful situation, when you feel your thoughts starting to churn like the waves of the sea, take 3 deep, full, and conscious breaths. Feel the air enter your nose, expand in your abdomen, and then slowly leave. By doing this, you're telling your body and mind, I am here, I am present, I can handle this. This simple act of conscious breathing can be a real lifesaver in moments of stress. Do one thing at a time. We live in a world that values multitasking, but the Buddha taught that true productivity and peace come from focusing on one task at a time. When we try to do many things at once, our mind becomes scattered, and although we think we're being more efficient, we're actually draining our mental energy. It's like having a flashlight, and instead of focusing its light on one point, scattering it across the room. The light becomes weak and you can't see anything clearly. Try focusing on one task at a time, whether it's washing dishes, writing an email, or having a conversation. This is what Buddhist monks call meditation in action, and it's a way to bring the peace of meditation into every moment of your life. Embrace silence and introspection. In today's world, silence has become a luxury. We're constantly surrounded by noise, news, social media, TV, podcasts. Even when we're alone, we try to fill the void with some kind of stimulus. But the Buddha invites us to rediscover the power of silence. Dedicate a few minutes each day to being in complete silence without distractions. It's like giving your mind a break, a moment to reorganize and calm down. At first, you might feel like your mind is flooded with thoughts, that the silence seems louder than anything else. This is normal. It's like opening a window in a closed room. The dust starts to rise. But if you allow yourself to stay in that silence, little by little, the mind begins to quiet down. Dealing with criticism and negative comments. Throughout our lives, we'll always encounter people who criticize us, judge us, or project their negativity onto us. If we don't know how to handle these situations, it's easy for that criticism to become a weight we carry throughout the day. The Buddha taught us to see criticism differently, as if every negative comment were a gift someone offers us. If we accept the gift, we take it home and keep it. But if we choose not to accept it, the gift remains with the person who offered it. This doesn't mean we should ignore all criticism. Some can be constructive and help us improve. The key is to learn to filter it. Ask yourself, does this help me improve, or is it just the other person's projection? If it's useful, take it. If not, let it go like a passing wind. Practice gratitude as a daily habit. Often, the mind tends to focus on what's lacking, on what we haven't achieved, on the things that bother us. It's as if the mind has a kind of hook that constantly seeks out what's wrong or missing. But gratitude invites us to shift our focus, to train our mind to look for the positive. Each morning, before starting your day, take a moment to think of 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be big things. It could be as simple as having a place to live, the taste of your morning coffee, or a friend's smile. Gratitude acts as an antidote to complaining, and by practicing it consistently, you begin to notice that even the things that once seemed insignificant have immense value. Conclusion: integrating the teachings for a serenely strong mind now. That we've journeyed together through these teachings, let's take a moment to reflect on how we can integrate them into our daily lives. We've explored some of the deepest concepts of Buddhist wisdom and discovered practical tools to cultivate a calmer, clearer, and stronger mind. We started by understanding the nature of the mind, how our thoughts are like waves in an ocean. Sometimes those waves are big and powerful, and it feels like they're sweeping us away. But through the practice of observation and understanding impermanence, we learn that we are not those waves, but the vast ocean that contains them. Understanding that every thought, every emotion is transient gives us the freedom not to cling to them, to let them flow without being swept away. We then delved into the power of mindfulness or mindfulness as a tool to reconnect with the present moment. We talked about how conscious breathing, focusing on one task at a time, and dedicating time to silence can transform our daily experience. Mindfulness reminds us that peace isn't something we find outside, in objects or circumstances, but something we cultivate from within, in the way we choose to live each moment. We also explored detachment and non-identification with our thoughts. We learned that we are not the stories our mind tells us, that we can observe our thoughts like someone watching clouds pass by without feeling compelled to follow them. This is one of the Buddha's most profound teachings because it allows us to free ourselves from the weight of expectations, limiting beliefs, and emotions that bind us. Finally, we discussed how daily meditation becomes a fundamental pillar for strengthening the mind. We compared meditation to a gym for the mind, where each session, no matter how brief, is a step toward a calmer and more stable mind. We talked about samatha meditation, for calming the mind, and vipassana meditation, for seeing reality as it is, without the filters of our prejudices. And we discovered that patience is the key to seeing the fruits of meditation, that just as a seed needs time to germinate, our mind also needs time to transform. As we integrate these teachings into our lives, we begin to see that mastering the mind isn't about eliminating all our thoughts or emotions, but about learning to live with them in a wiser, more compassionate and calmer way. It's about discovering that peace isn't the absence of problems, but the ability to remain calm even when things don't go as we hoped. And that's something we can all cultivate, no matter our circumstances or personal history. Remember, this is a journey that's just beginning. What we've shared here are tools, seeds you can plant in your daily life. And like any garden, you need to water them, care for them, and give them time to grow. Some days you'll feel more connected to these teachings, and other days it will be harder. That's normal, it's part of the process. The important thing is to keep going, step by step, trusting that every small effort you make to care for your mind, to calm it and strengthen it, is building a more serene future for you. Before we part, I invite you to reflect on one final question. What can you do today to care for your mind? It could be something as small as taking a moment to breathe deeply, remembering one thing you're grateful for, or dedicating 5 minutes to silence before bed. Remember, every small gesture counts, and every day is a new opportunity to move closer to the peace you're seeking. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these tips resonated most with you? What has helped you the most in understanding the mind from a Buddhist perspective? Leave a comment below and share your experience. What you say might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. This is a space to share, to learn together, and to support each other on this journey toward a stronger and calmer mind. If you feel this video has brought you value, if you believe these teachings can help others, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to receive notifications of new videos. Don't forget to give it a like and share this content with someone you think might benefit from it. Together, we can create a community of people committed to living more consciously, more peacefully, and more connected to what truly matters. Thank you for joining me on this journey, for taking the time to explore these teachings with me. I hope you found something that inspires you, that motivates you to keep going, and that reminds you that even though the path to integrate them into our daily lives, we've explored some of the deepest concepts of Buddhist wisdom and discovered practical tools to cultivate a calmer, clearer, and stronger mind. We started by understanding the nature of the mind, how our thoughts are like waves in an ocean. Sometimes those waves are big and powerful, and it feels like they're sweeping us away. But through the practice of observation and understanding impermanence, we learned that we are not those waves, but the vast ocean that can. Inner peace may be long. Every step you take brings you a little closer to it. May you find serenity in every breath, strength in every challenge, and wisdom in every moment of silence. Until the next video, and may you have a day full of peace and clarity.